I've done lots of research in perception in sports. I do perception action and how the world looks different from different vantages and different timings. So I've done research in baseball. We put head cams on baseball players, how they know where to run to catch fly balls. In football, how you know where the football is headed. Yeah, so we actually finished off 3 studies and started a 3rd study. And they're all based on timing perception. So the first one was it's a fun study on baseball. Umpires trying to judge when whether the runner running to first base is safe or out. And it's a multi-sensory judgment. So they're looking at, here's the foot hitting the bag and here's the sound of the ball hitting the mitt. And you go like, which one hit first? What we thought was really interesting is that the speed of sound actually is kind of slow. And so in the case of fans sitting 100, 200 feet back, then the sound of the ball hitting the mitt might be 200 milliseconds later. And we thought like, well, maybe that affects their perception. It's a reliable, systematic bias that when you're in the stands, you think that the ball arrived a little bit later than it did. And so we call it the safe bias. So the conclusion of the paper is that the umpires really are pretty accurate at that. The second study then has to do with timing of the wave at stadiums when everybody's jumping up and putting their hands up. And we were interested in is like, it seems like those go at about the same speed most of the time, and what determines that speed. So we timed the wave at a whole bunch of different stadiums and grabbed a bunch of more off of the web. And it turns out there's a really reliable time of about 20 people per second. Even more interesting is that if you look at our perceptual timing limits, like how fast can you blink lights before it looks like it's just one light, or how fast can you hear beats before it turns into a bass note, those are in like the 20 to 40 hertz rate also. So this looks like it's evidence that we evolved our perceptual timing limits to match our motor timing limits of how fast we could move. The third one, the one that we began with the funding of the Global Sports Institute, is the basketball study. We set up a study where people are, there's a screen blocking them, there 2 people's hands are out, and they touch each other. We have some lights to get them to touch each other about the same time. And we go like, okay, well, who touched first? We found that there's a really reliable 50 millisecond offset that you think you touched the person 50 milliseconds before they touched you. So if you touched at the same time, then people 70% of the time think they touched it first. If there's a 50 millisecond delay that you touched 50 milliseconds afterwards, then you're 50-50 on that. We want to continue looking at timing things. The area of sports is a great arena for studying perception action and vantage and biases and things like that because it's well controlled. There's rules and things that we can look at. So we can it makes it better to study, or easier to study and eliminate other variables. And it's also an area that sports has sort of evolved so that people can excel in different ways. That's what makes it fun to watch and to participate in. And so it really is testing out humans at their best in a certain way. We want to look at these other cases where people are doing extraordinary sports things and measure perception action thresholds and how people see the world differently from different vantages.